Hi, this is Rylan from the Vic Shop.
And I'm Gabe.
And this is how to better understand your Victory motorcycle. So from a technician's standpoint, the Victory motorcycles can be grouped into three distinct eras. The first one is the 1999 to 2001 era. This is represented by this 2001 Sport Cruiser. It's powered by the Pre-Freedom motor, which is a 92-inch 5-speed. And then we have the second era, which is an 02 to 07 bike. And here we have an 07 Kingpin. And these were powered by 92 and 100-inch 5 and 6-speed motors. And then you have the 08 to current 2015 bikes, and this one is 2014 cross country, but we'll also consider Visions and all the steel frame bikes from 08 to newer in this category. Alright, in today's video we're going to go over some simple maintenance, troubleshooting, and repair on your 2002 to 2007 Victory motorcycle. We find this might be helpful if you're a new owner for that year motorcycle, you're not lucky enough to have a mechanic close by that's good, or you just like to tinker and you don't have a manual. So let's get started. So the 2002 to 2007 model years describe a lot of different models, whether it be an 02 to 06 Classic or Touring Cruiser, which I don't have an example of today, or the 03 to 05 Vegas and Kingpin line, and up to the 05 to 07 Vegas, Jackpot, Kingpin, Hammer. For today's video, we're going to work on this 2007 Victory Kingpin with the 100-inch 6-speed.
Today we're going to talk about some basic diagnostics of a non-running motorcycle. Then we're going to go into a poorly running motorcycle. And then we will talk about some basic operational procedures.
So just like Gabe said, we're going to start our basic diagnosis on a bike that doesn't run. When we get a bike in that doesn't run, the first thing we're going to look at is the battery, which is underneath the left-hand cover. So a good 12-volt battery, when just sitting alone, should be able to at least hold 12.5 volts. This one has been sitting for a long time, and as we can see, is only at 12.06. Sometimes a battery can be charged and it will recover itself, but if a battery's been discharged numerous times, especially these Victory motorcycles, then we can pretty much assume this battery's toast. And for our diagnostic purposes, we're just going to replace this battery because I don't know if it's going to come back from that or not, and we want to have a good baseline to get this bike running properly.
So now that we've replaced the battery, we're going to make sure there's oil in this bike. The dipstick's over here on the right-hand side. So when you're checking the oil, keep in mind that the bike needs to be in an upright position.
So once we've got the new battery in the bike and we've verified there's at least oil in it, we're going to try to start it. I don't have high hopes for this one. We'll see what happens. Notice that when I attempt to start it, I'm going to twist the throttle just a little bit, which is something we're going to explain later on. Yeah, it's definitely not going to start. So the next logical diagnostic on this bike is we're going to look at the spark plugs. We use this 45-degree angled needle nose pliers to pop the spark plug boot off of the spark plug. So the spark plug is a typical 5/8" socket that we've already pre-loosened. So we can take a look at it. What you're going to be looking for is a plug that's really wet and fouled. It's extremely common for a Victory to foul the plugs if it doesn't get up to operating temperature. The bike is going to be artificially rich when it's cold, and if you start it a couple times cold and it doesn't get up to temp, these are going to foul out. And so the whole problem with the bike could be as simple as a couple of $5 spark plugs. And it's going to be cheap insurance to just put a new set in. So a common problem with the 02 to 07 bikes is the fuel pump. The fuel pump is prone to premature failure if the bike sits for an extended period of time or it's got bad fuel. And if the bike still isn't running, next thing I want to check is fuel pressure. We've got a fuel pressure gauge here which can be rented at most any auto parts store because it's something you typically wouldn't find in your do-it-yourselfer toolbox. So we've rented this from the local auto parts store, and we're going to plug in, I believe this is a Ford style adapter, into the fuel rail, which is underneath the tank, and the test port is the same on every 2002 to 2007 bike. We just screw this into the test port, connect the gauge, Gabe will flip the key on, and we'll see what the gauge says. 51, the minimum spec is 49, so this one's right on the money. I flip the kill switch on again, just to bump it back up. There it is. This has got good fuel pressure. I'm happy with that, so it should run the bike. So now that we've got a new battery in there, we've ensured that the bike is turning over, it's got new spark plugs, it's got good fuel pressure. The last thing I want to check is that the throttle point reset has been done. This is very important if your battery went dead, because it can mess with the throttle point setting for the fuel injection. So what we'll do is make sure that the kill switch is on, and then we'll flip the key on. Slowly roll the throttle to 100%, let it sit for 5 seconds, and then snap it shut, and then key off. I may do that 1 or 2 times just to make sure I got the procedure correct, but that's called the throttle point reset. So now that we've done all the non-running bike type of procedures, let's see if we can get this thing fired up. Hit that key. And keep in mind, watch how I give it just a little bit of throttle, which I'm still going to explain later. All right, Gabe, now that it's running, let's see what it does out on the road.
All right.
So Gabe just got back from his test drive and he reports that the bike is running, but just really poorly. So let's take a few minutes and look at some common things on a bike that runs, but just poorly. So to get the fuel tank off a Vegas line bike, we've got 2 8mm bolts in the front, 1 in the rear underneath the seat. There's a couple of vent lines in the overflow line for the tank. Underneath will be 1 connector for the fuel pump, and then the line out from the fuel tank to the motor. So now that we've taken the tank off, we're going to do some routine maintenance, which will also cover a reason why the bike isn't running so well. The routine maintenance is cleaning of the throttle body blades. Now, I recommend that it be done every oil change, or at the minimum, we should do it at least once a year. Some people do every other oil change, but the throttle bodies getting dirty is a natural byproduct of the bike running, and cleaning them should be done at a regular interval so that the bike runs properly. So to access the throttle bodies, we're going to remove these 5 screws, 3 of which are already gone. Pop the cover off. There's a couple of tubes in here which we'll twist to remove. And then you can see the throttle bodies down in here. So with one hand, I'm going to open the throttle body blades, and just a dry rag and my finger, I'm going to clean out thoroughly both of the throttle body bores and the throttle body plates, making sure top to bottom they're squeaky clean. So now I want to take the opportunity to explain why we crack the throttle open when we start it, and what this little lever on the handlebar does. This lever is only present on the 99 to 07 models, and really all that lever does when you pull it back is just slightly open the throttle body blades. A lot of people confuse it with a choke, and it is not a choke. A typical choke would be to restrict airflow to a carbureted motor. This opens airflow to a fuel-injected motor. And so this will also make it idle high so you can warm it up. So when I'm starting a bike, instead of pulling that lever, I'll just give it a little crack of the throttle with the same hand that I'm using to start the bike. And then once it's running, we can open this up, allow more airflow into the motor so it idles high, and we can warm it up on the side stand.
Now that we've gone over cleaning your throttle body, let's look at the throttle body boot that is located directly underneath the throttle body itself. So just for clarity, I'm going to remove the ignition switch bracket and the ignition coil itself. So now that we've got everything loosened up here, let's go ahead and pull this coil up. We're going to look at this rubber boot for cracks. So as you can see, this throttle body boot is rubber.
Like anything rubber, it deteriorates over time with the elements. As you can see, this is split in the front and is starting to pull away from its aluminum interface.
So another common problem on this year Victory is the engine oil temperature sensor. As you can see, it faces upwards and is in the same area as the throttle body boot and the ignition coil. Since it faces upwards, it's inclined to hold water after rain or washing the bike, and so you want to unclip the clip and pull it out and check both the wires on this side to make sure they're still hooked in, and then corrosion on that side, as well as corrosion inside the sensor itself. If that sensor's corroded or the wires are broken, it's going to make the bike run really bad. Okay, now that we've taken a bike that didn't start and we got it running, and then we found out it didn't run so good, and we fixed the problems that were making it not run so good, like in this case the air leak, the battery, fuel pressure. Now I'm just going to go over some basic how to operate your motorcycle type things. This is going to be real helpful if this is your first Victory or never had a Victory this year. Let's start in by doing the oil change. So the first step into changing the oil in your bike is to determine how much oil it's going to take. The 2002 to 2005 bikes are a 92-inch 5-speed, and they'll take 6 quarts. The way to determine that you have a 92-inch 5-speed is that the cam chain tensioners will have 3 separate bolt heads showing, or you can look at the belt. The 92-inch 5-speeds will have an approximately 1.5-inch wide belt. And the 106 bikes, the 05 Hammer, 2006 and 2007 models, their cam chain is one gigantic 1.16" head, and the belt will be approximately 1 inch wide. And these bikes will take 5 quarts.
Keep in mind your oil drain plug is located on the left-hand side. It also has a copper crush washer attached to the bolt. Your oil filter is located in the rear of the motor, and that's pretty much all there is to it.
All right, now that Gabe has drained the oil, he's put the drain plug back in, we spun on a new filter, and it's time to add the oil. So again, dipstick is on the right-hand side of the bike, and that's where you're going to go to fill the oil. Here's the contraption that I use to get the oil in. And remember, it's a 5 or a 6 quart system depending on your bike. And just remember that even though it's a 5 or 6 quart system, it may not take 5 or 6 quarts depending on how much you were able to get out during the drain. So we always let the dipstick be the final determination on the level. So what I'll typically do is we'll put, this is a 5 quart system, I'll probably put 4.5 in it, and we'll start it and we'll let it run, get up to temperature after a couple of minutes, and then set the dipstick back in and read the level and add as needed. I usually let the bike sit for 5 minutes after it's been run, let some of the oil go back down into the pan to get an accurate level. And here's a little tip, is that the distance of the threads is the actual distance from the low line to the top line. So you can actually set this on without screwing it in, and if the level comes up to the add, then you know you're good. Sometimes we'll double check it by twisting it all the way down and making sure it's to the full line. All right, now that we've fixed the non-running bike, got it running, changed the oil, did some routine maintenance, and taken it for another test drive, we've noticed that the idle is really high. And that's very common on something where you've cleaned the throttle bodies, because when the throttle bodies get dirty, the idle will drop, and a lot of guys will just go in and turn the idle up with this Phillips screwdriver. Well, then when you go and clean it, the idle's way high, and so we need to turn it back down with the Phillips screwdriver. So the spec is when the engine is warm, it should idle at about 1,000 RPM. And so I'll show you where to turn that back down so you get a good, correct, hot idle. So again, we're on the left-hand side of the bike, and I've got my long Phillips screwdriver, and you can see that it's engaging the throttle stop. And we'll turn this out to lower the throttle to the desired engine RPM. And again, you want to do this when the bike is fully up to temperature, because the idle will change as the bike's temperature changes. So we'll, while the bike runs, back that down so it's idling at 1,000 RPMs when warm. Okay, one last thing before I let you go is the start procedure. And I know I've hit on this a couple of times through the video, but I find that it's the least known part about operating this year of Victory. So again, we'll flip the key on, kill switch on, and then with these 4 fingers, we're gonna crack the throttle just a little bit, and with my thumb, I'll hit the start button. And then once it's started, I'll pull the high idle lever up, let the thing come up in idle so that it warms up. And typically I'll walk away, finish my cup of coffee, let the thing idle at a high idle, maybe 12, 13, 1400 RPM for a few minutes just to get the oil warmed up and to avoid running a cold motor hard. Running a cold motor hard can result in severe engine damage, and we do rebuild several motors a year from guys, and don't be this guy, takes a cold motor and starts it and runs it really hard. So here I will demonstrate. All right, we're about done here. Let's wrap it up. What we've covered today is that the 2002 and 2007 bikes are a lot the same. Even though there's many different models, they all share a common thread with the maintenance and diagnostic procedures. So we've taken a bike that didn't run, we diagnosed the reason it didn't run, we fixed that, we rode it, found out it needed some runability stuff fixed that, did some basic routine maintenance, showed you how to do that, and showed you how to run it. I think we're ready to send this bike on the road and let the customer enjoy a long life with his great running bike. And remember, the Vic Shop is always there. If you need anything else, any questions, just look us up. I'm glad you watched, and happy wrenching.